Hello, this is Haider Ali again, and now we're looking at Chapter 5 and an exam question related to this. The question asks, a firm has developed a holiday resort in Thailand. The resort includes apartments which the firm will sell on a timeshare basis. This means that once the customer has paid $30,000, they can stay in the apartment for 2 weeks per year for the next 30 years. The company intends to market this product to tourists who are visiting the area. There are a lot of competitors in this market. For each of the different business orientations, discuss why they may or may not be appropriate for the firm to follow in this instance, and identify one orientation that you would expect to be effectively used in this situation. Explain how you would expect the orientation of your choice to be implemented in terms of the way one of the elements of the marketing mix, product, place, price or promotion, would be used. As you can see from this question, what you're presented with is a particular scenario or situation, and you're being asked to apply particular course concepts drawn from Chapter 5 to this particular situation. The students who will perform best as regards this question are ones who can demonstrate not only a knowledge of the different orientations that firms can follow, but also the ability to apply those concepts to this particular situation and finally evaluate the effectiveness of each of those orientations to the situation presented here. So these are the different business orientations that firms can follow. What we need to remember in terms of the example that's been given to you is that the holiday resort is selling something to tourists, and the resort knows that the tourists are going to be there for a very limited period of time. So in order to make the sale to these potential customers, the resort knows that it has to convince them relatively quickly. The resort also knows that there are lots of competitors in the market, and those competitors are selling fairly homogeneous offerings which are very similar to each other. Now, we will need to bear those key characteristics of this example in mind when we think about the different orientations. So the definition of the different orientations and their application goes as follows. With a marketing orientation, the firm would try and find out what customers' needs and wants are and try to sell them what they actually need or they want. As far as the production orientation is concerned, firms that follow this orientation would try and make as many units of the product or service as possible in order to try and sell them as low a price as possible. But this particular orientation is perhaps not likely to be relevant here because we understand that it's a luxury specific offering and perhaps not suitable as far as the production orientation is concerned. With a product orientation, the firm would try and make something that is as high specification as possible, and the aim would be to attract customers on the basis of luxury features, product specification, and so on. With a sales orientation, the emphasis would be on selling and trying to ensure that customers buy the product. This would take into account the fact that customers are only present for a relatively short period of time, and if they're not encouraged to buy within that very short time frame, they will perhaps go away back to their home countries and spend the money on something else. Or alternatively, they'll go off to one of the other competitors and buy from them what would be a relatively homogeneous offering, very similar to the one being sold by this company. So what we need to recognize is that customers have the option to buy this homogeneous product from many different people, firms selling timeshare products. So a sales orientation may have benefits in some respects, but we need to recognize that the hard sell associated with it may discourage some customers. So, in summary, the sales orientation may be relatively effective in this situation, and indeed, if you look at the activities of various firms that sell similar offerings in the marketplace, they tend to follow what may be regarded as a sales orientation. There's a very heavy emphasis on making sure that the customer sits through the presentation, that people are told all the benefits of the offering, and that they're given a lot of incentives to make the purchasing decision relatively quickly. For example, they may be given discounts on placing the order immediately rather than delaying it. So in terms of the marketing mix, as far as personal selling is concerned, which is part of the communications mix, there can be an emphasis on signing customers immediately. The personal selling would be dealing with things like addressing customers' objections, that if somebody says, for example, that they don't have enough money, then the firm may, for example, say to them, well, okay, we can arrange loans for you, and the idea there would be to address customers' objections. As far as promotions are concerned, sales promotions, they can often be given, people may often be given discounts in order to encourage them to sign and sign quickly. Again, the salespeople recognizing that if the customer leaves the country and promises to look into the matter once they get back home, there's actually going to be very little chance of them doing so. There's a focus here on the fact that customers may only be present for a few days, and we have to encourage them to sign up as soon as possible. So those are some examples of the ways in which the different elements of the marketing mix may be used in order to ensure that customers actually place orders. This slide is a more general one and doesn't really affect the answer that I've just talked about, but I've just introduced this slide over here to remind you of the fact that firms can have different orientations, and there can be different situations when they're either effective or ineffective. And you may want to consider the material on this slide in relation to that previous question.